4. Welcome to the library. I am the recorder, and in this entry, we will look at another of the realm's many artifacts. This time, unlike the unique set that is Eddie's dice, we will be going over a collection of items. Each is an artifact in and of itself, however the methods to recreate them are far beyond the normal reach of those of the realms. But they each carry one core set of abilities and powers, no matter their form or additional features. These weapons were at one point a symbol of noble and holy might. Yet, in the modern day, they are sought as a weapon for the elite and their most trusted personal guards or other attendants, with almost no heed paid to their once glorious history. I speak of the Blades of Reciprocal Returns, once the holy weapons of the follower of a now long departed god, Monroe of the 3 great heroes. Perceptive patrons, regular visitors, and of course new guests of the library, I do hope you enjoy the following look into these ancient and mighty tools, forged in a past age, and still serving with distinction today in this artifact archive on the Blades of Reciprocal Returns. These weapons see their introduction to the realms in the immediate aftermath of the reign of Vanson, and with the rise of the worship of the newly ascended hero god Monroe. None doubted his might and place as the head of the heroes, as he had fought Vanson alone, holding him at bay as Vapor and Camille played their parts in the Vanson's defeat. The ranks of his congregation swelled in these years, and as his was a faith practiced by action and in the dark and dangerous places of the world, a means of protection and defense was required, as well as a tool with which to spread the word and light of their God. These means and tools would become known as the Blades of Reciprocal Returns, forged by the finest smiths among the faithful and within the holy forges of the Temple of Monroe. And it is the lack of the latter that makes any further future creation of these weapons unlikely, as the Temple of Monroe was removed from the mortal plane in the closing years of the Age of Valor, and it is assumed only the gods know where it is now. Without the strange and hallowed flames of these forges, the weapons cannot be made. However, for thousands of years before both knowledge of the temple and worship of Monroe passed from common practice and memory and into the pages of antiquity, those faithful that became paladins or crusading priests, those that would go into those dark places, did so with one of these mighty weapons. With them, the taint of the reign that still lingered was beaten back, hunted down, and all but excised from Jam'mar. While each of these weapons is a Blade of Reciprocal Returns, or BRR for short, the exact form varies based on who it was forged for. There are examples of daggers, rapiers, claymores, axes, polearms. Even the Dragwa Chainblade and its variants have been recorded as forms of BRRs that have, or still do, exist within the realms. This reflects the very diverse nature of those who answered the call of Monroe and of the heroes in those early, post-Vanson years and centuries. Examples forged in scale from that of a halfling and gnome to the Dragwa, and similarly bulkily sized individuals only further drives this point home as to the wide draw that Monroe and his faith had. No matter what form they take or for whom they were originally forged, the BRRs have a unified set of powers and abilities, in addition to any unique enchantments that may have been bestowed upon it during its creation, beyond which no other power or trait can be added, as any attempt to do so risks the weapon exploding in a ball of arcane and other energies. These core abilities are so universal that many accounts of history, speaking of the deeds and actions of Monroe's faithful, often confuse these effects to that of the power of Monroe himself, instead of the BRRs. First among these powers is the ability to manipulate and counter hostile magic and metaphysical attacks and works. This takes a few forms, the first being a bubble, in which no magic beyond that allowed by the wielder can function. However, this requires the wielder to focus and control the bubble, rendering him vulnerable to an attack. This generally takes the form of kneeling in prayer or of holding a salute. Combined with the greater abilities bestowed by the BRR, this action will often be the one that shatters the composure or restraint of a foe, spurring them into a headlong attack that ultimately results in their end, as the stance and bubble can be ended at any point for any reason, to obviously include delivering a counterblow. The second, and more commonly used, is that of a personal bubble, enclosing only the wielder and their personal gear. And this form requires the wielder to not dismiss it by accident or folly, as it will remain until it is so dismissed, but will then require an equal amount of time as it was in use to recharge on its own. This effect is among the best known of the powers of a BRR, as it can be used without even drawing or brandishing the weapon. And this fact has seen many attacks or raids suddenly thwarted as they have deployed a spell or an attack of great size meant to disable or kill a crowd or area, and it leaves a single person still standing and unaffected. While the list of possibilities for this kind of survival or resistance goes far beyond the Blades of Reciprocal Returns, very few bandit or horde leaders are willing to risk their fellows facing anything that could be on that list, and will often retreat instead. Furthermore, the blade's touch can sever the bindings of magic, especially of hostile and dangerous spells or enchantments. Again, this requires the wielder to intentionally call for this power of unmaking on a foe during an attack, but this is little hindrance in most cases, and in optimal conditions, also serves as a check against accidental uses of this blade's power. Curses, transmutations, magical pestilences all fall to the touch of a BRR's unmaking power, as well as wards of imprisonment, concealment, or sealing, making them invaluable tools for those exploring or otherwise in ancient ruins or in the halls of long-fallen empires out there amongst the stars. This power also extends to breaking apart the power of items and equipment struck in combat or otherwise, with the might of the strike directly aiding in both the sundering of the mystical and physical, often utterly destroying or laying to ruin the object in question in total, while the former owner receives no damage beyond the loss of the item so sundered. Beyond the ability to affect magic, the blade's greatest power comes from its ability to even the playing field between a foe and the wielder. The greater the difference between the foe or foes and the wielder, the greater the effect of this. Thus, a child wielding a BRR could face down a dragon, and stand an even chance of coming out the victor, with the power of the blade essentially making every attack initiated a coin flip on its success or failure. Now make no mistake, those of the hunters or other adventurers would rightly scoff at such low odds in combat. But it is far better than the near zero chance that would otherwise be possible for those not of the higher tiers of talent and power, of which the hunters are the best of the best, often forgetting the gulf that often stands between them and others of a less adventurous and more peaceful lifestyle. This leveling of the field can take the form of increased speed, skill, and strength for the wielder, or the development of new abilities such as flight or immunity to the favored energies of a foe. Unnatural luck and resilience are also common manifestations of this power, with wielders recording enduring full gouts of dragon's breath with no apparent effect on multiple occasions. This grants the wielder far better endurance and ability to hold their own against threats that would otherwise make easy work of both the wielder and the local population than would otherwise be possible, and enables one to defend against foes that should rightly be unstoppable to normal folk. This effect has one more important feature. When used in a defensive posture and reciprocal manner, the power, skill, and might of incoming attacks is returned to the attacker, along with the wielder's already empowered counterattack, depending on the nature and the force of the incoming attack. This can see the end of many would-be villains and monsters alike in a single counterblow. This of course has limited effect on enemies using ranged weaponry, as the blade does not reach out to strike them, only reflecting their munitions back at them. While in the past, this would normally only result in an empowered arrow or bolt returning and maiming or killing the attacker. In the modern day, the prevalence of ballistic weaponry and Kriss guns capable of large bursts of fire has seen the reflected volleys capable of clearing entire positions of life with the added power granted by the BRR's defensive traits. Ranged spells or other magics are likewise either absorbed to recharge the personal anti-power field, or reflected back at their casters if the field is currently in use or fully charged. This makes the owners of BRRs defensive warriors par excellence, capable of holding nearly any position from potentially any kind or number of foes. Dragons, along with many more of the intelligent monsters and beasts of the wild, learned quickly to avoid those of the Monrovian faith and the deadly weapons they defended themselves with. In the modern era, of course, these precautions are long moot, and only the dragons seem to have created a means of detecting these potent threats to themselves, and they make all efforts to avoid them if they are in use or otherwise owned, and twice that to claim them if they are not, to prevent the threat to themselves. Bodyguards, City Watch, and many more similar groups make the acquisitions of BRRs a priority for these properties, as it allows them to handle foes that are beyond their day-to-day ability or experience. However, it also makes getting a hold of one an expensive and possibly tedious task, as trying to take one by force is unlikely to even work, and the very few who manage to find or otherwise obtain one are likely to be a mind to sell it, no matter the price offered. However, with the vast numbers that were forged while the ability to do so was there, a BRR can normally be found with a few years and the proper amounts of funds, as well as a willingness to use whatever variant of the BRR that is next discovered or brought to market. Otherwise, finding a BRR in a preferred form could take decades, if not centuries. Trade of BRRs between nations and other sovereign powers does occur rarely, with one trading forms that are less favored by their warriors for those that are. And normally this is a one-to-one exchange, and should be noted always done behind the scenes, as most powers would prefer to limit the knowledge of just how many and what types of BRRs are at their disposal. Many more BRRs exist out there as family heirlooms, either earned or discovered by an ancestor long ago. And while their might goes unchallenged by the family that so owns it, many, in fact, are unaware of the wonder they indeed have. Occasionally, BRRs will be found in ruins, dungeons, and ancient caves, or, more commonly, as parts of deep-sea wreckage. For no matter how mighty a BRR is, bad weather and bad seas are not a foe it can prove victorious over, and those very seas have claimed many of these weapons as their wielders sailed across the waves. Even in the age of skyship and cog gates, ships sink with all hands and gear aboard often enough, and each year a few more of these weapons find their way to the sea floor. Thus, beyond the hunters themselves, many of whom recovered BRRs from the hordes of dragons, the greatest source of these weapons that do find their way to market is that of the sea elves, perhaps unsurprisingly. While they are difficult to contact, and even harder to earn the trust of, the Sea Elves of Jam'mar are thought to be the only power in the realms that has what could be considered a stockpile of these artifacts. And this is speculated to be no more than a few dozen or score at best that are not in use by their own people or for sale to outsiders at any one time. Even this relatively small amount is estimated to be worth untold amounts of gold, favor, and other such concessions, with numbers somewhere in the multi-million standard gold range for each, if not far, far more. With that undersea detour concluded, this is where I'm going to draw this artifact archive on the Blades of Reciprocal Returns to a close. From their origins as holy symbols and weapons of Monroe, to their current day position as a highly desired weapon for a particular stripe of warrior, the BRRs have been a part of the realms for ages, and decidedly on the side of justice and good, far more than its opposite. Whether they are held as a family heirloom that only sees use in the darkest of nights, or as a sign of honor and trust from a lord, these weapons are each a unique work, and a testament to the mindset of the realms and those who would aim to bring the fight to the foe, no matter how far they might otherwise fall short of the prowess or might of that tyrant or villain they so face. May they continue to be used to defend the realms and her peoples, as they have been since their creation. My perceptive patrons, regular visitors, and new guests of the library, I have been, as always, the Recorder, and I thank you for your time and support of the library and of the realms of Jam'mar. Until you next make your way back to the library for your next entry of Intro to the Realms by the 9 and 4, be well, take care of yourselves and each other. If you'd like to contribute to the further exploration and explanation of the realms, please consider leaving a comment, a like, and sharing the video around. I read all the comments and make efforts to reply to each. Thank you for helping to grow the channel, and know I look forward to each and every one of your comments. Other methods of support can be found in the channel's description. Thank you for watching.